Come join us on our next family adventure as we explore the Pacific Northwest and the beautiful Olympic Peninsula.
And we'll show you later about this beautiful Crescent Lake.
Welcome to our family adventures. We are a family of 3 from Florida who loves getting outside and exploring everything that this big, beautiful world has to offer. From hiking in the mountains to kayaking in the ocean and everything in between. Come along with us as we take on our next family adventure. It's the end of summer in 2025, and our family's off on our next adventure to explore the Pacific Northwest. We had a late night flight into Seattle, and the next morning we woke up and headed west towards the Olympic Peninsula to start our trip. Our first stop was the Quinault Valley in the Olympic National Park to see the world's largest Sitka spruce tree. Getting back in the car, we continued our journey into the Olympic National Park and went to Ruby Beach. Ruby Beach is famous for all of these interesting rock formations called sea stacks. Now the water is much colder here than we're used to in Florida, so no swimming, but Lexi at least wanted to touch the Pacific Ocean. We continued to wander around and explore the beach a while and came across this massive rock structure that had a cave-like formation. Lexi wanted to give us a tour of the cave, explaining what she loved about it. I think she's explaining to us here that if she was stuck out here, this would be the safest and most ideal place to fall asleep. She said if she really did have to sleep in the cave, she'd wake up the next morning with this incredible view. Alright, snapping back to reality, we make our way back down the beach and continue our journey west towards Forks. Now this sign in the city of Forks may sound familiar because it's the setting of Stephenie Meyer's Twilight series, and they really lean into that here. After a long day of driving and exploring, we check into the Dewdrop Inn, grab some dinner, and get to bed. The next morning, we're up early and heading to the Hoh Rainforest inside the national park. We're hiking the Hoh River Trail today, and it's one of the most popular and beautiful areas of the park, so it gets pretty crowded, and you'll see why here in just a couple minutes. Now the Hoh Rainforest gets about 140 inches of rain each year and is surrounded by the Hoh River, which originates at Mount Olympus and heads towards the Pacific Ocean. Now this is one of the most beautiful parts of our entire trip. I would highly recommend anybody coming out to the Pacific Northwest to take the time to come to this hike. Now the hike itself was mostly flat and along the river. It's an out and back, so you can make this about a 50-mile hike, or you can do what we did and turn around at Tom Creek, which is about a 6-mile hike. Now here's the Hoh River. It looks incredible. It's just like pure wilderness. The water is crystal clear and there's nobody around. We turned around here, but on the way back, Lexi got bit by a horsefly and she was not happy. Eventually her pain subsided and we had a great lunch at the Hard Rain Cafe, got in the car and drove to Crescent Lake, where we would spend the next 2 days of our trip. Now this is Lake Crescent Lodge, which was originally built in 1937 and is owned by the National Park Service inside of Olympic National Park. Now let's let Lexi give us a quick tour of our cabin for the night.
We have a bed where you do all your sleeping. We have some coffee stations over here because this is like where my parents' favorite room is, over the area. We have a very pretty view.
Now she isn't kidding, this is incredible. Our cabin opened right up to our own private beach on Lake Crescent. We got all settled in and took in the view for a little bit, but since we're on this gorgeous lake, we had to put our swimsuits on to jump in. Now, admittedly, the water was pretty cold and it was really rocky, but with water shoes on and that view, you couldn't resist jumping in. Now, we swam for hours, but as day turned to night and the sun started to set, we went to the main lodge restaurant for dinner. I, of course, had to try the salmon, and Lexi loved her grilled cheese. Ashley had a shrimp salad, but for dessert, huckleberry ice cream. Now, dinner was pretty good, about 7.5 out of 10, but you really came here for the views. I mean, look at this. Now, the next morning we woke up with quite a surprise, with a deer right outside our window having some breakfast. Now, our plan for the day was Lexi and I were going to hang out at the lodge, and Ashley was going to take on the Storm King Trail, a very famous and popular hike in the area. Now, the reason why the Storm King Trail is so famous is because it's essentially a climb to the top of Mount Storm King, which is a 4.1 mile loop and gains about 2,000 feet in elevation. You have to use these ropes at the very end of the trail just to get to the summit. Keep in mind, though, that the ropes are not maintained by the Trail Service, so use them at your own risk. Ashley would tell you that the payoff was certainly worth it. I mean, look at this view over Lake Crescent. Lexi and I were very proud of her for making it all the way to the top. We were tracking her the whole way with her Garmin GPS. We were very sad to say goodbye to the Lake Crescent Lodge, but we were off to our next stop on the lake, the Log Cabin Resort. Now, this resort is also owned by the National Park Service, but has a bit more of a rustic feel to it. And apparently there's been some cougar activity in the area. Either way, this resort's also on the shore of Lake Crescent and has these incredible views. Since it was a bit too early to check in, we jumped back in the truck and drove to Hurricane Ridge to do the Hurricane Hill Trail, which is in the heart of the Olympic Mountains. Apparently the cougars have made their way here too. Now, the Hurricane Hill Trail is a moderate, popular 3.4 mile round-trip hike that has 826 feet of elevation gain. The trail overlooks the Olympic Mountains and Mount Olympus most of the way, and we caught a glimpse of this marmot on the side of the path. We learned that these are actually called Olympic marmots, and they're only found here in the Olympic Mountains. We eventually make our way to the top of Hurricane Ridge, which is named that because it frequently gets wind gusts above 74 miles an hour, classifying them as hurricane force. At the summit, we were greeted by this herd of deer that were casually feeding and exploring the area. Now, it may be pretty common to see these black-tailed deer in Olympic National Park and Hurricane Ridge here in particular, but we still enjoyed being able to see so many of them. We also spotted this large buck with velvet antlers, keeping an eye on the area. There were a number of smaller paths and trail offshoots here at the top of the hill that we wandered around, and eventually
we made it to the summit of Hurricane Hill.
After the hike, we went back to the Log Cabin Resort and Lexi showed us around.
Welcome to our Crescent Lake Chalet. Next we have a bathroom, and it's very nice. And then we also have two beds, one right here, one right here, and also, of course, my stomach there. And I will say the bed's very nice.
I forgot to mention that we picked up Lexi's new stuffed bear, now named Huckleberry, because she left Rocket at our very first hotel outside of Seattle. And I'm happy to report that Rocket has been found and shipped back home to us. We're up and drinking our cold brew bright and early this morning because we have just an incredible day planned. We're jumping in the truck to drive to the seaside village of Port Townsend, which sits directly on the Puget Sound and is the home of the Puget Sound Express. Today we're excited to jump on board in spite of the slightly overcast weather and see if we can spot some whales. The Puget Sound Express was a purpose-built catamaran that can travel over 40 knots, that's 46 miles an hour, and designed specifically for the Puget Sound whale watching adventures. After about 45 minutes, we pull up to what we later learn is a grouping of 3 different pods, or families of orcas. We were just in awe of their beauty, and they were putting on a heck of a show for us. Our guides tell us it's very unusual to see 3 different families grouped together like this. Generally, when the young leave their parents, they form their own pods and they don't come back to reunite. They also shared a lot about the history of the tracking and research that goes into each of these individual pods. They can actually identify each individual whale by their fins and markings, and track which pods they belong to and where they migrate and live. Our guides later showed us a full presentation about each individual whale that we saw, their names, and who they're related to. We waved goodbye to the orcas to continue our journey, and then we came upon this humpback whale. Humpback whales in this area can range to 40 to 50 feet, and while this is a smaller one, it's still about 40 feet long. Humpbacks can hold their breath much longer than orcas do, so this one would only breach every 5 to 7 minutes or so. Our last stop was over to Protection Island, which is a federally protected national wildlife refuge. It's home to a number of animals, including these sea lions on the shore. However, we were all most excited to see these puffins, probably even more so than seeing the whales, as they're extremely rare. Back on dry land, now we set our sights on exploring the city of Port Townsend, starting with these otters right here on the docks. These guys look pretty playful, and Lexi definitely wanted to run up and pet them. Coming back up from the docks, we explored the town a bit and had a nice lunch at an old-fashioned 1950s diner, and then headed to our hotel for the night. On this night, we were staying at a very unique location called the Olympic Railway Inn, where each hotel room was actually a converted caboose with a special theme. Our room for the night was a caboose converted to the theme of the Polar Express, so it was Christmas themed.
This is my bed, everybody.
Lexi's loft even came fully equipped with Christmas lights.
This is really the coolest hotel I've ever been in. Really? There's a big bathroom with like a sleigh shape, so you can sit and go ho 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 while you're driving.
We dropped our luggage, got settled in, and then headed to dinner, followed by a trip to the Dungeness Recreation Area, which is along the cliffside in the Puget Sound. The sunset from here was very unique and just spectacular. We passed this Christmas tree farm on the way back and then jumped straight into bed. Once again, we got up early to start our journey east toward the Cascade Mountains, where we'd spend the rest of our trip. Rather than building bridges everywhere, Washington has chosen to have a ferry service to connect all of the cities surrounding the Puget Sound. While our ultimate destination is the Cascades tonight, we have a few stops to make along the way. First up is Deception Pass State Park, where we can watch the planes take off from Whidbey Island Naval Air Station. And we take a quick walk up to Deception Pass Bridge, overlooking Deception Pass. And here's where we decide to take a bit of a detour today. Instead of going straight over to the Cascades, we're going to head north, up to Canada. We're crossing the border to go horseback riding in Campbell Valley Regional Park in Langley Township. Ashley and Lexi go on a trail ride throughout the park, which will play host to the Campbell Valley Horse Trials next week. Events include dressage, cross country, and show jumping. When we asked her what she wanted to do on this trip, Lexi only had one answer, which was horseback riding. So I'm glad we got to do this for her, even if it meant driving to Canada. You can't leave Canada without having some poutine, so we stopped for lunch before jumping in the truck to cross the border and head east to the Cascades. Now we made it to our second national park of the trip, North Cascades National Park, and the scenery here looks quite a bit different than the Olympics. Scenery here is a lot rockier with a lot less vegetation and some very wide open spaces. After driving the North Cascades Scenic Highway, we finally arrive into Winthrop as night falls. After a good night's sleep in our hotel in Winthrop, Washington, Ashley wakes up early to take on the Maple Pass Trail. This hike is classified as hard by AllTrails, and you can see why. It's a 6.5 mile loop with 2,162 feet of elevation gain. And since it's a loop trail, all of that elevation gain comes in half the distance, so it's pretty much a straight up hike to the top of Maple Pass. The trail took her through some beautiful meadows covered in wildflowers and past Lake Anne and up through Heather Pass, all while offering gorgeous views of the rocky Cascade Mountains. Ashley's just an incredible hiker with strong determination, and of course she makes it to the summit. She next makes her way back down the mountain through the gorgeous meadows with beautiful views of Lake Anne. While Ashley took on the Maple Pass hike, Lexi and I explored the town of Winthrop. And after the hike, Ashley joined us to tube down the Methow River. The Methow River is actually a tributary of the larger Columbia River, and its crystal clear waters meander straight through the town of Winthrop. The Cascade Mountains are significantly warmer than the Olympics, so this was actually a perfect way to cool off on a warm summer afternoon. The total trip was about 1.2 miles, which took us about an hour to complete, and there were some areas with some small rapids which were a lot of fun. While the water was crystal clear, we unfortunately didn't get to see any salmon, which can be found in this area. After we wrapped up tubing, we headed back to the hotel to get some rest for the big day ahead. We woke up to just another picture-perfect morning to kick off our very last day in Washington. We say goodbye to Winthrop and jump on the Cascades Scenic Highway to the Blue Lake Trailhead. AllTrails ranks this height as a moderate hike, with 916 feet of elevation gain over the course of 4.6 miles. On the way up to the lake, we're joined by a whole bunch of rock climbers who are going to the Liberty Bell Mountain, which is an offshoot of this trail. We make our way to the end of the trail and arrive here at Blue Lake. We were up early this morning, so we pretty much had the lake to ourselves for a while. We started the hike just before 8 o'clock and got here about 9 a.m. We even saw a few trout here swimming around in the lake looking for breakfast. Every few minutes they'd come to the surface trying to swallow a bug that had landed nearby. Like pretty much everything else on this trip, the scenery is just spectacular here. As we finally make our way back down the trail, it's really hard to say goodbye to this area. On one hand, you're completely isolated with no cell phone service and not a lot of people nearby, but at the other hand, you feel so connected to just everything around you, like the trees and the vegetation and all the animals, but most importantly with your family. On the way back to Seattle, we had to make just one more stop. Now we all know Banff has Lake Louise, but the North Cascades has Diablo Lake, and it's incredible. Since this is Lexi's very first time in the Pacific Northwest, we wanted to make sure we had some time to spend in downtown Seattle to see all the famous sights. We walked through Pike's Place Market, which was very crowded, saw the flying fish, but Lexi only had her sights on one thing. We all got in this ridiculously long line for Starbucks, but it was worth it to see how happy she was seeing the original. Of course, she had to pick up a few cups and mugs to take home and a pink drink to enjoy in the afternoon. Turning away from the marketplace, now we head to the very last stop on this adventure. The Space Needle was built over 63 years ago, right in the middle of the world's obsession with getting to space. There are actually 3 elevators on the Space Needle, and 2 of them are double-decker, like this one. The trip to the top takes about 45 seconds. The floor rotates thanks to a 1-horsepower motor, giving everybody a great view of the skyline. And if you look closely, you can see Mount Rainier right behind downtown Seattle. Standing out on the observation deck is a little unnerving, as is standing on the glass looking straight down with nothing below you. We took the 45-second elevator ride back down and went to the hotel to get some rest for our long journey home tomorrow. As we fly back home, I started to reflect on the trip. The Olympics with the rainforests and its proximity to the Puget Sound, and the Cascades with their vastness and rocky landscapes proved to be very different but equally beautiful. What do you think? Do you have a favorite? Have you been to this area? Let me know in the comments. I know I speak for all of us when I say we just can't wait to see where our next adventure takes us.